Techies webinar. I'm Shilpa Fadnes and I have with me my colleague Sujit John. The two of us will moderate today's discussion. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well. Our discussion today is in association with Indeed, the job search engine where you can search for millions of jobs. And we are going to discuss one of the hottest topics today, how our work future will look. From what we hear, some functions may require employees to be in the office on all working days. Some jobs may be permanently remote. In India, companies like Meesho and Cactus Communications recently announced that all their employees are free to choose where they want to work from office, home, hill station, beach, wherever. But the vast majority will probably be offered a mix of office and home. Companies will likely experiment with different hybrid models. And today we have with us two seasoned professionals who are in touch with a broad range of companies, and we'll hear from them what is going on in the minds of company managements about hybrid work. We have with us Sashi Kumar. Sashi is head of sales for India at Indeed. He brings with him more than 20 years of experience. He began as a trainee at Tata Infomedia in 2001 before joining the recruitment industry a year later. He was with Monster.com for over 12 years and now with Indeed for close to 7 years. He's played a key role in shaping up leading job boards in the country. Welcome, Sashi.
Pleasure to be here.
And we have with us Achyuta Ghosh. Achyuta is Senior Director and Head of Insights at NASSCOM. Achyuta has over 20 years of professional experience in analytics, research, and consulting. Prior to NASSCOM, Achyuta led the Smart Cities business for Ford Smart Mobility in India. He has also worked in technology organizations such as Frost & Sullivan, Genpact, and WNS in various leadership consulting roles. Welcome, Achyuta.
Thank you, Sujit. Great to be here.
Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I will put them to Sashi and Achyuta. Sashi, Achyuta, we ran a poll ahead of this webinar on LinkedIn and Twitter asking readers whether the hybrid model is suitable for the Indian technology workforce. And on LinkedIn, there was like 91% saying yes. What does that tell you? Sashi, you want to go first?
Yes, it's not surprising, especially with the tech world, with how we are poised in terms of people having gone through this experience of 2 years where they've done a lot of their work at home. A lot of people expect that companies would have learned from the largest social experiment that we've gone through over the last 2 years and bring out the benefits as we continue getting out of the pandemic. So this means a lot to a lot of people. Some people found working from home absolutely great. There were others who struggled a little bit, and there were yet others who felt that they could, sort of use or live with the best of both worlds. So for most companies, offering flexi work is something which will come as we go into the future. And that's also something which will benefit a lot of employees across many companies, specifically in tech, where a lot of the work happens with a computer and not necessarily interacting with other people or customers.
Okay, what do you think is the biggest reason why, from the employee standpoint, why do you think employees would prefer hybrid?
They would prefer hybrid for many reasons. One, hybrid gives them the option to have days where they are still interacting with their colleagues, meeting them, getting to office, maybe sharing a cup of coffee, and also working from home for a few days. And that's a huge benefit, especially for people who live in big cities like Bangalore, Gurgaon, Noida, Hyderabad, where travel consumes a huge amount of time and it also takes away a lot of your energy. So for a few days to be able to not have to travel and not have to experience that is something which people will definitely welcome. But having said that, we will still have roles in companies that will need, people to come into office every day. There will be other roles where people can have this option of either spending a few days in office and a few days at home. And there'll be certain roles where you're free to work remotely for all the time. And employees will have the choice. And that's what matters. Choice matters, giving the choice to your employees on how they engage with work.
Okay. Achyuta, kind of the same question to you. You represent vast numbers of technology companies. Are they thinking along similar lines?
So I think Sujit, first up, the 91% number is great, and to me, it's a reflection of maturity of the industry, both from an employee side and an employer side. That employees also understand that because they have been delivering quality work for the employers, that's something that they can expect this going forward, right? So that's what we see. You asked about what are pros and cons of both, right? I mean, if you look at the way people work from home overnight, this entire shift happened where a 90% on-site model moved to a 99% remote model, right? I mean, and it happened overnight, and the technology industry was quick enough to react, assess the infrastructure, implement it, and at hardly any downtime. So there was hardly any downtime for most of these technology roles when the overnight shift happened. And people really love the fact that they got safety from COVID. They love the fact that some of the people reported higher productivity. They love the fact that there was flexible working hours, right? And some of them also felt that employee communication also improved. Some organizations took added initiative to have better communication. It was an opportunity for us to really look at the way we used to work with people, right? Because that physical presence was not there. On the flip side, I think something that Sashi already mentioned, that people really miss the informal social interactions that happens in one particular day, which actually powers your right brain, left brain growth, right? I mean, that's something to look at. In-person collaboration, teamwork, brainstorming, new hires, right? I mean, how do new hires actually try to get to understand the culture of an organization, get things done, working with different teams. I think those were things that was a little bit difficult in a digital environment. Better work setup in terms of having your machines, your infrastructure right over there, right? I mean, all those things are things that techies missed, and that's the reason why hybrid work is appealing to them. And even in our latest surveys with the industry, what we see is that about 70% of the organizations are looking at some kind of a hybrid work model. The remaining 30% are split between 100% remote or coming back to an on-site model. And I think it all depends, as Sashi mentioned, there's no one-size-fit-all policy over here. Different companies will define roles and depending on their organization structure, their organization culture, their organization goals, there's no one size fit all over here. So everybody will go in their own direction, and the hybrid model will have multiple ramifications. We can talk about it as this discussion goes forward, but those would be my opening comments.
Okay. From taking off from where Achyuta left off, Shashi, different kinds of hybrid models. Is that what you're hearing from employers? What do you think is going on in their minds?
So from most employers, what we are hearing, and also what we've done at Indeed, is we've defined or structured roles that need people to be in office. For example, IT, networking, employee experience, etc. For them, obviously, they need to be in office full time. Then the other bucket of roles which can operate flex, spend some time in office, spend some time working from home, and the third bucket of roles where you can do completely remote work. Now, the important thing is each of these buckets get the choice. So obviously for the first bucket, you need to be in office full time. For the second, they have a choice between saying that I want to work in office full time, or I want to come in for a couple of days to office. And for roles where people can be completely remote, have all three options. They can say, look, I know I can work remote, but I don't want to work remote. I want to come into office every day. They can do that. Second is they can choose to be, partly remote, work for a couple of days from office and then be working from home, or be fully remote. The important thing is that employees make these choices upfront so that companies can plan on what the office space will look like as they reopen offices and have people come back. So that's what most companies are doing. And I think we are going to see this evolve. I don't think the solution that's going to come out today or tomorrow is a long-term solution. This will keep evolving depending on the kind of experience that employees, employers, customers of companies have.
Okay, that first bucket that you mentioned, people working every day from office or all working days. These are people who got used to also working from home. will they be resistant? Even in our organization, we are wondering whether that will happen. There are some segments who we think should be coming to office regularly, but then they've got used to being at home as well, and they think they can do it from home. So will they feel discriminated?
I wouldn't think of it as discrimination. I would think of it as a requirement. See, when they signed up for working, it was always going to be working from office, right? And so some roles need, for example, IT networking. You need to be there where you're close to the server room. You need to be able to ensure that the IT systems and processes of the company are running smoothly. So for that to happen, you need to be in office. Possibly there'll be companies where they'll say, okay, we will split this up, maybe have a few employees coming in on a few days and somebody else, a few other people coming in on different days. But the function as such needs to have people on the ground every day.
Okay. Shilpa used to be a total office person. Now, I don't know how she managed to work from home for 2 years.
Yeah, news doesn't happen online. So, you need to be on the ground. Yeah, for us. Yeah. Shashi, coming to you, 8.6% of all your job listings on Indeed are remote. The descriptions are also remote. In February 2020, it was just about 2%, and the number of jobs on offer at that time was 49% lower. And 6% of all the job searches for employees are today, involving words like remote, work from home. So, if you can share your thoughts on that.
I think that's a wonderful piece of data that we were able to pull off. Pre-pandemic, we had less than 3% of roles which could function remotely, open roles which advertised and said, look, this is work from home or work remotely. That's gone up to 8.6%. And this 8.6% is on a much larger base. As compared to Jan-Feb of 2020, today we have 49% more openings. So you can see what the impact of that 8.8% odd is. Now, this is also very well reflected in what employees or job seekers want. Today, 6% of all searches that people make on Indeed are around jobs where they're seeking for jobs which are possible to be worked remotely. So it's a nice confluence where companies are able to offer this and job seekers want this. So I think that sort of speaks to the time we live in, and that sort of speaks to how possibly we will operate in the near future at least.
Achyuta, you want to add to that?
No, I think I'm actually surprised. I would have thought the 6% number would be higher.
Higher, no?
But you must remember that we are Indeed as a platform is a search engine that caters to a much more wider variety of job seekers and employers, not just techies. So if I'm not a guessing man, I'm not a betting man, but if I had to bet, I would bet that a lot of that 6% would have come from the techie world.
No, I agree. I think if you only consider the tech universe, this number would have been a lot higher. A lot of the responses would have come from that sector. And I think, again, going back to the point that we started on saying that, I think the tech industry demonstrated the capability to, provide the same quality of services at the same productivity level overnight when the shift happened. And that's the reason why, this may be something that everybody is looking forward to. So that's the future.
Achyuta, I wanted to ask you, since you know the minds of, I presume, a lot of these tech company managements and all that, what are the worries about people working from home? Recently we also wrote about moonlighting and all that. And there could be other issues. The WFH, work from home. What are the biggest challenges that companies think?
I think I'll take a step back and maybe, Sujit, I think this is a very interesting question you asked. I think from an organization perspective, there are a lot of things that probably needs to change, given this environment. One is, how do you rethink the entire talent acquisition and management strategy approach? So is HR really equipped to tap into this talent pool? How do you drive talent management? How do you retain people in a distributed setup? That's one. The second one is, what's the complexity around building culture and employee engagement, right? What kind of interventions are required to build culture? Culture is very, very unique to each organization. And often you need to be there with a group of people in the office to really feel it, to really live it. especially for the new hires, right? So how does leadership behavior typically come in to set the right example? How do people learn from leaders? Because that's another aspect of culture, right? So we need to think about that. The third is, how do you utilize your offices? You've got this huge, humongous infrastructure, right? The tech industry has that in place. So how do you start utilizing that? What kind of modifications do you need to make to your existing infrastructure to keep in mind the new, thinking around, utilization of space, wellness, safety, etc., right? At the same time, opening satellite offices, people would have gone back home. People would have not only been working from their own home, but they may have gone back to their hometowns, right? So how do you build your tier 2, tier 3 strategy, build satellite offices so that people who are there in other locations can work in that kind of an environment. So so hybrid work is not only about working from home and working for office, but also trying to utilize other infrastructure which is available. Sashi over here works from WeWork excellently, right? Same thing, if organizations are large organizations are trying to tap onto the people who have already gone back home, the satellite town, the tier 2, tier 3 location strategy will become very important. So how do you work with a WeWork or somebody and then create your own co-working space in a particular city, and that becomes your secure office space going forward? I think that is going to be there. Complexity in onboarding and integrating freshers, junior resources within teams, not only the teams they work in, but also the other teams that they interact and they need to work, right? So that's something that needs to be addressed. Challenges with remote delivery on areas that require lab infrastructure. I mean, Shashi spoke about infrastructure management, but people who work in product development, design, R&D, I think there is a significant amount of push for those people to come back. And again, I think there would be ways, how you split your teams and work accordingly, but office would be important over there. And then, how do you transition from a time-based quantification, which a lot of the organizations do, to an outcome-based quantification? And this is easier said than done, but that is probably going to be the biggest headache for a lot of these organizations as they define their KRAs and their metrics going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially new joinees, like you said, integrating them. We are facing that same challenge even in our organization. Yeah, when they're new and don't know how we normally function and all of that. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I like, I mean, your point about the campus infrastructure. I mean, yes, some of these companies have built such fantastic infrastructure. Now, I was discussing the other day with Shashi this point. I thought a lot of youngsters will probably want to come to office because of the lovely facilities that are on offer. But Shashi was also pointing out that many youngsters today want to work out of remotely wherever they want to, from hill station or some beach or something and all that. Shashi, that's true. What are youngsters? What do you think youngsters are thinking?
I think it is safe not to wager a bet on what youngsters are thinking, because like all of us, youngsters are different people, and a lot of them have different motivations, different aspirations, different situations in which they are in. So I think at least I would stay away from trying to answer that question. It's not safe to answer it. But definitely, I think there is a huge number of people who will be attracted to coming back to office, working out of these nice office spaces with food available, with a lot of recreational facilities, etc., available. And on the other hand, you'll have people who would say that I would want to sit outside a beach in Goa and work. That way, that's something that I enjoy. And next week, like you said, work out of a hill station. So there are different combinations of what people want to do. But what's important is that, as Achyuta pointed out, how companies measure employees' success of working with an organization. For a long time, specifically in India, it was always time. This person works very hard. They spend 12 or 14 hours in office, which was extremely unfair to a lot of people. You could be spending 14 hours, of which 10 hours you're spending in the TT room playing TT. So I think as companies are evolving, we need to look at how we measure employees. And in this new paradigm, measuring based on outcome, on what the delivery of that person is more important than the number of hours they spend in front of the computer screens, even if they're working remote or flex, and whether they're picking up your phone on the first ring or answering to your ping on Slack in under 30 seconds. So a lot of that needs to evolve, and that involves uh, changes in people's psyche, uh, being sort of nuanced in your approach to work, looking at what the end goal is. What are you trying to do? What are your last outcomes? And are you and your team heading there? So that's the change we'll see a lot of companies, a lot of employees having to do, a lot of managers having to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. This outcome thing that you're talking about, absolutely. I mean, I remember anecdotes about men versus women. Men would spend their time playing table tennis, like you said, table tennis and other things, and spend their time in office till 7, 8 o'clock. While women want to get back home by 5 o'clock because they have to, the kids are coming home, cooking and all of that. And managers might think of the men as the harder performing guys, no?
Exactly, and I think it was so unfair to women, right? I've in previous roles, I've seen people who sweating from playing table tennis, looking out of the window in the table tennis room and saying, that person is going home, easy job. And this person is like working hard at playing tennis for most of the time they're in office. So it's been, like you said, significantly sort of skewed against women when you measure basis the amount of time spent in office.
Yeah, and Sujit, Shilpa, there's a secret I want to share. NASSCOM and Indeed will do some research in this space this year, trying to understand what the millennial workforce, what motivates the millennial workforce to work in this kind of an environment. And I think that's some interesting stuff, and maybe we should talk about it once it's out.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay. I just wanted a related question, Shilpa, before I want to come back to, it's kind of related. I've heard this from multiple people, this whole question of some people working in office, some people working from home, and they're the same team. Would managers tend to prefer the ones who work from office? Will organizations have to figure out ways to deal with something like that? Somewhere managers will tend to think that, okay, the people sitting in front of him, her, are probably the more harder working. You can't see what the remote guys are doing and all that. These are things that will have to be looked at. Can technology solve some of these problems?
Absolutely. In fact, it's solving that in the last 2 years. And it's part of that change in mindset that I was talking about earlier. What has this person delivered is the question that we need to ask, rather than this person is sitting right next to me and the other person is sitting some other place. But in a lot of ways, specifically for the tech industry, that problem has been resolved, not now, but a lot earlier. You have these distributed teams where part of the team is based in India, other part is based in Eastern Europe. There's another part of the team based in Western Europe and the United States. So already you have companies that are dealing with distributed teams. So in my mind, it's not as big a problem to overcome, because this is something that companies have dealt with even in the pre-pandemic era.
Got it.
No, I completely agree with Sashi also. We again, being a researcher, I'll probably talk in frameworks a little bit. And if you look at what do leaders need to really look at while designing this future of work, right? I mean, we talk about how we work. That's the first phase that we are looking at. We look at customer relationships. They're all going virtual. Go to market, right? I mean, personalized relationships are having to be built digitally. The employee work model, we already talked about hybrid. We talked about location agnostic. We talked about they being asynchronous, right? Earlier it was an asynchronous module. You look at productivity, how it's enabling transparent productivity measurement versus time-based output that we talked of earlier. So that's the how we work purpose. The second part is how do we lead, right? So you have leadership who is trained for remote management. Right now, I think it's not there, but over the past couple of years, a lot of progress has been made, right? Resilience, adaptation, empathy. How do you build as a manager? You're working, the person is juggling work at home and also stretching all that. So how do you build empathy in the system? From a culture perspective, affiliation to the brand. How do you mentor people within your organization? the bonding aspect, right? I mean, these are all things that are important from a leadership perspective. And then you look at a societal leadership angle also, right? From a sustainability perspective, your carbon footprint, diversity, inclusion, all those things become important as a leadership model. The third is, how do we organize ourselves, right? I mean, what are the ways of working? Agile, iterative, you quickly fail and learn from it. Collaborative, embracing innovation when it comes to work rather than doing it in the same way you used to do it when you were in office and all, right? So I think that's there. How do you redefine roles in the organizations? I mean, employee wellness officer, that's something that we'll probably see in every organization going forward. And it will be different from a HRO, CHRO. Typically, we tend to bundle everything under that big umbrella. But these are things that organizations will redefine roles, create new opportunities. How do you access talent of now that you kind of opened up the entire pool, entire country to work from, in case you are getting into that hybrid kind of a model? And then what do we need at the end? You need to redesign, you need to choose your locations, you need to look at that hub and spoke model, you need to redesign your office space currently, which is there. Tools and technologies, what kind of tools and technologies can you put in? What kind of lab ecosystems, collaboration mechanisms, cybersecurity in a different kind of an environment, distributed setup. And of course, you look at learning and development. I should have probably brought it up earlier, but L&D becomes the most important angle over there. How do you continuously learn? How do you upskill yourself? How do you create a workforce that is engaged and skill focused? And then how do you enable them in a hybrid model? I think these are all questions and challenges which are in the front of the leaders to really live in this space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wellness officer, that's coming, is it? Already there? It's already there, is it? In some companies?
I would think so.
Wellness, okay. Shilpa?
Achyuta, coming to you, how do you make policies more friendly in a remote first world, make it more equitable for prospective employees?
I think that's a very interesting question, and again, it builds on to the leadership point that we kind of discussed a little bit earlier. That how do you you look at the point that we were talking about. So earlier it was all about time, but how do you make it output based? How do you make it impact based, right? I mean, the work that you do, how do you really get the manager or get the people to evaluate your employees based on the overall impact, the effort that is put in, rather than the time that is spent on something. So I think those metrics will change in terms of how do you measure people from there. Second is the sustainability angle, diversity inclusion angle, right? I mean, are there any metrics that we can set now that we are not limited to one particular city or one particular region? We are open to getting people from different places. Earlier, maybe physically handicapped was a challenge, and people maybe would have thought, okay, fine, coming to office, getting in may not work. But now all those things can be relooked at. And when you are now looking at your employee value proposition and the kind of people that you are going ahead, the overall culture of togetherness, I think people were very siloed in offices earlier. There is a big chance that when they go remote, they become even more siloed, right? How do you kind of address that either through technology, either through better communication? We saw that communication actually was one of the key reasons, which key differentiators for companies who were successful in this remote model versus those who were not successful, right? So I think these are all things that can be imbibed in organizations to make yourself a more diverse and inclusive workplace in this hybrid model.
Shashi, this hiring, of course, you're in the middle of that. So hiring virtually, how has that worked, do you think?
So while we still talk about what models companies will take, I think it's safe to assume that hiring has changed. I mean, and that's a given. We had, hiring processes in the past which would demand that a prospective job seeker would visit the company they want to work for about 3 or 4 times in the course of about 3 or 4 weeks for interviews, and then maybe spend half a day going through the interview process, which would include waiting time in the reception, looking for a conference room, getting into a conference room, having a discussion, sharing a cup of coffee, traveling back to either home or to their workplace. So every single interview would demand that you needed to take off at least half a day to be able to attend an interview. That's going to change. a lot of this is going to move to technology, where you're going to use video interviews, online assessments, screening, etc., to go through interviews and be hired. What this will mean for companies, one is that they will be able to substantially reduce the amount of time they spend on hiring. Two, for job seekers, it will mean that they'll have to take lesser time out of work to attend interviews. It's going to get over in an hour or so. The timing is set. You come in, finish your interview, and go on. What it will also mean for job seekers is that they need to be prepared with maybe the skill sets remain the same, but you need to have additional softer skills to be able to communicate better on video. How are you able to put your thoughts together and convey it in a short period of time? How are you able to effectively communicate, given that there might be some attention deficit with the people that are sitting on the other side of the camera? So it will impact how people are hired, one, for companies, for people who are getting interviewed, and finally, for the kind of skills that job seekers need to bring. And this is going to be important, and companies will actually judge people on those skills, like softer skills of talking, communication, being brief, etc., because this is going to define how these people work even after they're hired, considering that a significant part of the time will be spent working remote.
I believe, I've read this about AI technologies and all coming in to understand candidates' expressions, this, that, and the other. Are they useful?
I don't know about that, but what is useful is being clear in your thoughts when you're coming into your interview, having a smile, sitting in a place where you can attend the interview without being distracted, being clear and concise in your communication, reading through the job description to understand what it is that the interviewer is likely to judge you on, and having clear and concise answers for those. So AI, no AI, this will stand in good stead.
That's from the candidate's point of view. From the recruiter's point of view,
it's a win-win. So from a recruiter's point of view, again, the need to rush around finding a conference room to do the interviews goes away. The amount of time they spend with the scheduling and the other aspects go away. They are able to connect with candidates over a shorter period of time over a video. The number of candidates they can interview in that span of few hours drastically increases. From maybe 2 or 3 candidates, it can go up to 7 or 10, considering a lot of the other places where time is taken away goes away. So it's a huge benefit for recruiters as well. And in many cases, companies can use online hiring to reduce interviewer bias. Let's say they set up jobs where people can apply, they answer a bunch of questions which are related to the job, and they're able to choose the time slot at which they want to be interviewed. The recruiter needs to know only the answers to the questions that have been asked, access to the assessments they have taken. They need to know the name of the person, what their gender is, and some of those other details where biases can creep in. So if companies play it well, they can use this technology even to reduce biases that might creep in the screening part of the hiring process.
Achyuta, did you want to add anything to this?
No, I completely agree with Sashi. I think the bias often starts right at the screening process, even now also, that, okay, this guy is willing to do hybrid, this guy is, not willing to do hybrid, or, is pushing for remote or, full office, something like that. So I think it's important for us to train ourselves to look at the job role requirements, and that should be the solo filter. And that's the reason why it comes back to not only the recruiter, but the guy who's posting the job, creating the job, defining the job, to be very specific and bring in the thinking that is required at this level.
But just to add on to what Achyuta said, job descriptions can repel certain kind of candidates. For example, you can have a very masculine job description, which will automatically mean that a lot of women won't apply for it. And that happens a lot. Today, we have a lot of tools that help us figure out if the job description itself is balanced in its appeal to people of different genders and different classes and different section and strata of society.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Shilpa?
We have this audience question from Utkarsh Garg. Are there conclusive studies and data points which touch upon how work from home and employee productivity are linked?
Achyuta, do you have any studies?
So we've done some research. We've interviewed about 7,000 employees, tech employees last year, along with Indeed in the project that we did when talking about return to work. And at that time, there was no third wave coming up. So most of the people said, yeah, January onwards, we'll come back to work. So I think we would look at it as, every 3 months after a wave, people would be willing to come back to work and all. So what came out over there from the 6,000 interviews is that about 13% of the people said they reported higher productivity in a work from home environment. This is the
30,
people's
30.
13.
13. Okay.
Yeah, 13% of the people said that they actually experienced higher productivity in a work from home kind of an environment. I think we'll have to look at this from the filter of some people had extended work hours because because of not being in office, they had to solve a particular problem and it took more time, and that actually affects your productivity overall. So that kind of numbers. But roughly, this is what we heard from the market. About 7,000 people said about 13% of them actually saw a little bit of higher productivity working from home. Did you expect a higher number?
I was expecting. I thought I've seen studies which seem to suggest higher numbers, but of course, technologies are also improving all the time. So maybe some of these things, the figures themselves will change as these technologies change. Did you have anything, Shashi, to add to that?
No, I think coming specifically to productivity, it's also important for companies to lay emphasis on, health of the mental health of their employees, and that can dramatically, impact productivity. For example, at Indeed, we have one working day or a weekday off every month, so that employees can sort of get their other stuff around banking and a lot of other stuff, which needs people to go out and get things done, take care of that. Be conscious of when you're calling in people for meetings. Look at what is allow employees to set times where they don't want to attend, where they can choose not to attend calls, etc., specifically late in the day or late in the evening. So companies need to pay attention to a lot of that. Focus on employee mental health. Be aware of the circumstances in which their employees are working, and very importantly, be empathetic to their employees, and that will definitely help improve productivity.
And Sujit, a follow-up data point over here is that from the same survey, 20% of the people said that their work-life balance went for a toss during work from home.
Okay.
So that number was on the higher side compared to 13. So you have 13 at one end who said productivity is up. You have 20 at the other end of the scale. The middle 65-70% is where the action is going to lie, and we'll have to probably understand them a little bit more.
Okay.
Because we have two sides already drawn out.
You kind of answered these questions in there are a couple of questions here that I'm looking at. There's Pravina PJ asking, for managers, how relevant are their people management skills when most of the experience is from a time when 100% of the employees came to office? How can managers stay relevant in the WFH era in terms of people management?
That's a very good question. It's not just about managers, it's about every single employee having to retrain, reskill themselves to be relevant in this era. And like this questioner asked specifically around for managers, how do you effectively manage teams when you call your colleague? How do you start the conversation with your team members? How do you deal with people who are joining meetings late? It could be because they have a different kind of situation at home. Could be somebody in the family who's not well, who's been impacted by the pandemic. So it's about bringing forth your human skills, building on your communication skills, looking and developing on empathy. I think in this new era of work, I think empathy plays a very important role. Empathy, communication, there's no such thing as over communication. As many times as you can communicate, as many times as you can go back and talk through what is important for work with your teammates, that's the best.
No, very true. Yeah, absolutely. Achyuta, you
Yeah, so I think Shashi touched upon very important points. I mean, see, evolving the role of this first line managers, that's going to be the biggest shift. I think working from home the management angle, especially in Indian context, that becomes very, very important, right? I mean, how do you adopt best practices at scale? How do you run regular reviews, build one-on-one connects with your team members, set clear expectations, give feedback on a regular basis. How do you unlearn and learn with the fresh hires? Often the fresh guys are much better at technology. I mean, they are digital natives compared to most of the managers out there, right? So there's a lot of things that you can learn from them. Community in an organization becomes very important. Not that because we have a very strong NASSCOM community, but I think building communities for an organization in this kind of an environment becomes very important, because you would love to learn from peers than being top-down driven from the top, rather than that. If you can learn from peers, if you can identify coaches within your organization, I think the community angle typically becomes very important. The idea is to build trust, provide employees with autonomy over work and timing of their work, right? I mean, how do you create opportunities for interaction? I'm a big believer of unstructured employee engagement. Often, employee engagement in the past used to be this town halls, these formal meetings that comes in. I think hybrid model gives us an opportunity to be a little bit more unstructured, especially because you don't have those coffee table conversations anymore, which used to be your unstructured engagement at one point, right? How do you level the playing field, feedback frequency for remote and in-person people? Often the differentiation happens there. Okay, fine, this guy is in person, I'll do more feedback as compared to the guy who's in report. So I think being fair in this environment is very important. And how do you localize your decision making? How do you empower people to step up, voice opinions, voice their issues? How do you integrate lower level employees into key meetings? Right? Often meetings have a limitation, right? And in a physical environment, the boardroom was a limitation. Now you don't have that limitation. So how do you really use that flexibility to empower people and make them learn faster? I would think, in a team structure, right? I mean, earlier you had a team lead and then you had your team members, right? I mean, today you can actually have very evolving roles. You can have mentorship. For mentorship, you can actually, rather than going to the team lead, the entire community can play a role. The organization community can play a role. People management is something that the team leads will continue to do, but topic leadership, learning, those are pieces that a community would play a role, and it is imperative for organizations to build those right communities of employees, because that itself can help drive the organization in the right direction.
No, very true. I can totally relate to all these things you're talking about. Yeah. Shilpa?
We have this question from Shravani Mavadi. What are some of the new women-centric policies that were initiated during the pandemic?
I think in the pandemic, the importance of diversity and inclusion, specifically gender diversity, has increased, specifically with a lot of tech companies in the product space as well. I think a lot of companies have realized that at least 50, and especially product companies, have realized that 50% of the consumers are women. And how do you build an experience for 50% of your audience if you don't employ enough of them in designing and developing these products? That's been something which a lot of companies have realized. For most companies over the last 2 years, they've realized that diversity and inclusion is not necessarily a sort of a social goal. It's a business imperative. If you need to succeed as a business, you need to have diverse employees, because ultimately any business serves a community. And unless the business itself sort of represents the diversity that's available in the community, you will not be successful, or your success will be limited.
When you said that the whole hybrid and remote work will benefit women, have you started seeing the impact? I mean, have you seen it happen already? What is the expectation?
It's a mixed bag, Sujit. I don't know if it's been completely beneficial. I think for a lot of women who had to work from home, they had to really balance the extra workload of being at home and doing house-related work and also getting their work done. I think for a lot of them, there was additional stress. So I don't know if that's helped a lot, but I know that companies have gone out of their way, not just for women, but for all their employees, to provide an area of a space where they can work and deliver the best for all employees. And also, there's been this focus or this understanding that we need to have equal representation within our company that reflects the community that we are coming from.
Okay. Achyuta, I mean, same thing. I mean, women side, there's this whole thing that, of course, now women, since you're open to remote working, I mean, Shashi mentioned all the challenges that the existing women employees faced. The other side that you can, since we can get women who are in smaller towns working remotely, cannot join the workforce immediately, I mean, come to office immediately. Have you seen that impact happening already in benefiting women in terms of employment?
So I would think from an NASSCOM perspective, I can speak from my organization. I see a lot more, applications, profiles of women coming in and applying for any roles that we typically have. And I think that's something that we have seen in the past, couple of years. The good part is, I think there's a lot of research from our side also that has come and showed that if we have a more diverse and inclusive workforce, your innovation quotient goes up, your revenue growth actually goes up, your retention goes up, your average retention in an organization, talent attraction from a perspective, that actually goes up. A lot of these are metrics that organizations will need to track and build on, because this is important for their business to have this in the right manner. So we believe that this is only going to increase in a hybrid work environment.
Okay. I have a question here from, I know both of you have kind of answered this question, but just see if there's something you want to add to it. Ashish Arya asking, what parameters should companies look at in defining the rules of hybrid work? Should the rules be across the organization or customized for respective roles? Kind of mentioned it, I know. But...
I would say that depends completely on the space in which the company is operating in. I don't see a single size fits all answer for this. It'll vary depending on the company, vary depending on the kind of work they do, vary depending on the kind of audience that the company speaks to.
Okay. Shilpa?
Don't have any more audience questions. Yeah.
Technology wise, what is what have been some of the best technologies in this entire remote work, hybrid work? How do you think those will evolve?
I think we are seeing a lot of focus on cloud-related technology. Outside of the pure play tech role, we are seeing a huge growth in digital marketing roles. We are seeing, from a technology standpoint, almost every single kind of technology has been in demand around cloud computing, around data sciences, around digital marketing, around a whole bunch of roles. We've been seeing a significant increase in demand from companies.
Okay. I was also asking in terms of shared collaboration tools and all that. What would you like to see advances that will make this whole experience better? Anything that you can think of?
So
you were saying something?
Yeah, so I think, Sujit, what we have also seen is this HR tech landscape really come into its own. HR technologies that we talk about, which actually looks after the entire employee life cycle, right? I mean, there's the entire life cycle, where it's hire, onboard, learn, rewards, performance, the career succession planning, engagement, exit, the entire life cycle of an employee. You've seen a lot of HR tech companies really come up, startups also coming up and doing some good work. And this marketplace in India itself is $1 billion plus in terms of revenues, and there's a lot of players across the value chain, almost about 1,000 to 1,500 players who are working on this, and it's attracted a lot of funding also in the last 2 years. About $130 million of funding has been attracted over here. So and all these are focused on hybrid work models. Cloud adoption is the underlying platform around which these solutions are built. They address mental health and employee health and safety, also drive flexibility, right? So all these are areas that they also address, a lot of these HR tech solutions. We have some upcoming research coming up in the next few weeks. We'll be happy to share some of that with you.
Oh really? Okay. Well, what do you sense? I mean, all these VR technologies, and of course, people are now talking metaverse and stuff. But Shashi, have you heard of use of, these kind of virtual reality and AR kind of stuff benefiting hybrid work?
Honestly, I haven't come across a lot of VR technology being implemented by companies, but like Achyuta said, I think there's been a significant, sort of upswing in using HR technology around, specifically around training and skilling and retraining and hiring and all of it. The entire gamut of HR technology has seen a significant increase in use. I have personally, not Achyuta possibly may have a better answer, but I have not come across too much of use of VR and some of those other technologies, specifically with relation to work from home.
Okay. Achyuta, anything at all?
Yeah, I see. It's not yet mature, but I would feel that with all this focus on metaverse and all, suddenly, I would feel that would be an accelerant in the maturity of this technology.
Okay. Again, this question from Sharan Chaitanya. How are hiring? I kind of answered. I think how are hiring practices evolving in the remote era? Will over-reliance on technology in this regard make organizations lose out on maverick thinkers?
That's a good question, and I think, in fact, maverick thinkers will be able to express themselves a lot better with technology, primarily because the pressure of that sitting in a room goes away, and you're in an environment where you're likely to be more comfortable. You're able to express yourself, but like I said earlier, I think the importance of communication will significantly go up. How are you able to communicate what you can deliver? That will go up. Like with everything, you have some aspects which will move up and some which will move down. But overall, I think the impact of technology on hiring is going to be a lot more positive than any residual negatives that might exist.
Okay. Anything you wanted to add, Achyuta?
No, I agree with the tech part. I think another piece that we may want to consider is, your office. I mean, how do you redesign the workplace of the future to really make it attractive, make it, appealing to the audiences, and also at the same time be in sync with the next gen. I think typically we've always seen a per square feet kind of logic, right? I will 75 square feet per person. I know you set up your campus, you build it around that, right? Number of people, etc. But today, how can you create an activity-based workplace? You restructure the office, you free up a lot of the spaces. How do you create your work zones, your connection hubs for teams to work and collaborate effectively, right? How do you create immersive experiences for employees to join discussions, right? I mean, there will be people joining in a on-site model, there will be people joining online from a remote model, right? So how do you make it more immersive? I think all those things are important. I mean, when you look at activity based workplaces, what we say is that, okay, fine, you have a work zone where you work, you have focus zone, quiet areas, where you kind of work on your own, you have collaboration zones, you've got a work cafe where you blend your hunger binges with productivity requirements. You have your wellness zones, right, where you rejuvenate. I think, and then you have your home offices, which are ergonomically designed to support your 7 or 8 hours that you spend in your home also. So I think a lot of workspace thinking needs to get in to think from the future perspective.
Yeah, I know that's true. So you're saying it's going to become more for, like you said, collaboration space. Your regular workplace might be, that what you used to do early in the office, you might be doing more of that from home. The office will become a place of meeting and collaborating and all that. So office space will be designed accordingly.
3 aims, I would think, for the office. One is, how do you promote a learning culture? I think that's something which your office should be designed around. That, okay, fine, every moment you spend, because you spend less time, should be focused on building, you learn something from there, right? Second is, how do you build a very resilient infrastructure, whether you're working from home or from a co-location offices or in your office itself. And people coming in to your office, definitely they want to come because there is better infrastructure there, right? So don't let a cyclone or anything really affect your infrastructure. Third is, how do you basically build your office to drive this adaptive way of working, right? I mean, how do you work according to the structure of your team? Today you may have 10% in office and 90% at home. Tomorrow you may have 50% in office, 50% in home. So how do you structure your office to have that flexibility in it? You shouldn't be in a place where you say, okay, we don't have space today for 50% of the people because they want to come, right? So I think some of these things need to be kept in mind before designing your offices also, and that's the big shift we would think.
Oh yeah.
I don't think offices will close down. Offices will be redesigned.
Well, there are more questions coming in. I know we are almost out of time. Oh, we are actually out of time. But Shilpa?
Yeah, we have this question from Arvind Tanar. Working from home standardizes a lot of aspects like infrastructure, network, etc. While a lot of these things vary vastly while working from offices, yeah, it vastly varies working from home. What can organizations do to standardize this?
Did you get that, Shashi?
So, yeah, I'll take that. So one is that this is where the role of technology in interviewing comes in place, right? So when you interview people, you're also not just checking their skills, you're also checking their internet connectivity, seeing if there's any drop in connection, drop in packets, etc. So really, there's not much companies can do around this. One thing which they can definitely do is and many companies are doing is pay for good broadband for their employees. But then ultimately, if you're sitting in a place where great broadband or internet is not available, there's not much the company can do. What they can do is ensure or rather demand from people that they need to be in a place where they have adequate infrastructure to carry out their work well. And a lot of companies, while they're doing interviews, will look into aspects like, okay, how good was the internet connection? Was there drops? Was there any lag, etc. as they decide. And that's one of the decision-making factors from being able to offer jobs as well.
I have again kind of partially answered previously, but anyway, Gayatri Srinath asking, how are organizations dealing with the Gen Z workforce and what are Gen Z jobbers looking for in companies?
You can't look at a whole generation of people and say this is what they're looking for, right? There's a massive peril in that. Like any other generation, people in Gen Z are as varied. You have people with different wants and needs. I think what everybody is looking for, irrespective today, and I see this more with youngsters today, is purpose. It's not just about salary. It's not just about the name of the company. How is my work going to impact society? And honestly, we are seeing that come not just from the Gen Z population in the workforce today, but across everywhere. People want that purpose in the work. So that's something which we are seeing come up very strongly.
How widespread is that, you think, Shashi?
I think it's pretty widespread these days. I think, and it's not just limited to tech in my understanding. Across, you are really questioning what is, I think the last 2 years have forced us to ask questions that we've not asked ourselves in the past. What is the purpose of my life? It may sound to sort of head in the spiritual direction, but then these are questions people are asking. So if a company is able to convey its vision and mission to employees, saying, look, this is what I'm going to help with in society. If you work for us, you are creating a technology that's going to impact 250 million people who live lives with a certain amount of hardship. That's a strong statement. That is a strong thing that you can tell your employees, and that's something which motivates a lot of people today.
Yeah.
And I think, Sujit, on the same point, right? I mean, today's millennials, Gen Zs, they crave for social acceptance even more than anybody else because they have been from nuclear families, single child often, right? Working parents, been alone for a long time. They're well-to-do, right? So they're not in for the money. Many of them are not in for the money. They've got varied levels of education. It's not a doctor and an engineer choice that we had 20 years back. Today, there's so much of choice that the people come with. But the social acceptance becomes very, very important, and somehow their purpose and what they do is often a reflection of the social acceptance that they seek. And the job gives them that, whether you're working from home or working from office.
Okay. Very interesting. I know we are out of time, almost 7 minutes past 7. Final words, Shashi, any last message to employees.
We are emerging out of possibly the largest social experiment we've ever seen in our lifetime, in our parents' lifetime, and even our grandparents' lifetime. I mean, nowhere in the recent human history has work been disrupted, or how people work has that process been disrupted as much as it has over the last 2 years. There are a lot of learnings for companies. There are a lot of learning for employees. I think we must build in those learnings. We must be open to change, open to newer learnings, and that will be what will lead us to success, either as employees or as companies.
Achyuta?
Patience and perseverance. I think these are two things that we'll probably request both the employers and the employees to hold in spades, because we don't have answers ready. I mean, 2 years is not enough for our experiment to come together and give you the right answer. Sorry, there's a power cut, so the light's gone out. And I look like a ghost over here. But it will come back in about, it's back. So be patient, persevere. I think this wave is out. People will come back to office. Organizations are still figuring out the way in identifying the right hybrid model for each of the organizations. It's not going to be like typical tech companies. You have 15% on-site, 85% offshore, and that's how it works, right? I mean, every organization will get their own, define their own hybrid model going forward, or non-hybrid, whatever they want to do. So, have patience. And I'm sure in the next, over a period of time, we'll figure out the right way going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're all still learning, and come what may, the future is definitely going to be very different from what it used to be before the pandemic. What we do know is that we have learned a lot in the last 2 years, and a lot more learning is required, and a lot is going to change over the coming years. Thank you so much for a very fascinating discussion, Achyuta, Shashi. Really nice having you on our platform. Hope to see you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.